Welcome to I'ma Talk About It. I'm Alicia E., empowerment coach and ancestral healer, and I'm here to teach you how to break generational cycles, self-advocate, and ascend to happiness without the guilt of wanting a better life for yourself. You don't have to choose the same path as those before you. You can choose a better way, your way. Because if we can each heal ourselves today, we can heal the world tomorrow together. Hey everyone, you're about to hear me talk about generational healing and the power of rest. My mic decided to have a dance party and go wild midway through my podcast, so it gets a little screechy for a minute. But the content is just as powerful and just as lovely. You just don't get to hear my very amazing voice very well. So I hope you all enjoy, and thanks for tuning in. Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope that you are having a fabulous day. It's been a minute since I recorded a podcast. I've been doing lots of fun things with my product line and working with my partner in our new program, Wealthy AF, and just sitting in my relaxation. And so I wanted to actually record a podcast on the power and the importance of rest, because I know that it is talked about in a way that's, very surfaced, I would say. It's important to rest. You should be resting, yada, 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 yada. But then we don't actually have a lot of good examples of what rest may look like. And I want to point that out because it can be really, really challenging to begin a rest journey or begin a relaxation journey, or as I like to say for my empowered femmes, living in luxury. It's really hard to learn how to do that when all you've been shown is the opposite of rest, right? Like all you've been shown is how to show up and then continue to show up, right? And it just was like on my mind. And so today's episode is just going to be me free flowing about the importance of rest, because I definitely feel like this message needs to be shared, and whoever it lands upon is probably needing to hear this message. So I want to point out first, the idea of rest or taking care of yourself looks different for everybody. But not only that, it looks different depending on how you were raised, right? Or the culture that you may come from, what your household was like. And I don't want to beat around the bush when I say this, but people who come from marginalized groups and are specifically people of color have a lot more difficulty learning how to rest and receiving rest, because their family and their family before them have never been able to rest because of what happens to them as people of color, what their experience is like, having to work even harder and work for longer periods of their life to even make a small wage. So I don't want this conversation to simply be about, how can you improve your self-care routine? How can you do all those things? Because it's much deeper than that. And I also just want to point out that when we think about self-care, which I feel like has been misused and just, I don't even know, like self-care has been so commercialized that it literally makes no fucking sense to me. So when you look at self-care, I want you to redefine it for yourself. What I need in terms of care for myself which is what self-care means, care for myself, is going to be very different than what you may need, right? So I am a Black queer business owner. So my self-care this week really looks like me not running myself into the ground with my content, sharing when I feel inspired and not sharing when I feel uninspired, and to really put time for rest on my calendar, because I enjoy what I do and I get really excited and I lose track of time. So that is how I am taking care of myself. But maybe someone who isn't an entrepreneur may have a different lifestyle. Like maybe you're also a parent or a caregiver, or you take care of members of your family or your grandparents. Like maybe you are needing physical space. Maybe you are needing a meal made for you. Maybe you are needing to get outside or to travel, right? Like it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. So I want to challenge everybody who's listening to this right now to really redefine what their care for themselves would look like. Not what you see in the magazines, not what you see on TV, because we've made self-care look very washed. Like spa days and things like that. And don't get me wrong, like I am all for that, but there's something else that's going on, right? Like if we pull back the band-aid of wanting to get that massage, like what are you actually feeling? What is your body feeling? Or maybe you're just doing it because you want to do it. But for a lot of us, when we look at that, we want to do it, we don't necessarily do it, and we may also think it's not attainable, right? So there's many, many layers behind looking at a scene in a movie of someone getting a nice massage and then defining that as your self-care. Like, wow, look at them really take care of themselves. And then it's like, oh, I can never do that. So then you just don't, right? You don't redefine how your care looks for you in a way that would actually be feasible for you. And also just knowing that your views of self-care may be heavily given to you by your upbringing, right? So like if you were raised in a household that didn't value self-care, or maybe didn't know what it looked like because they were never shown, then you may not know how to take care of yourself because you literally have never seen it. You may be around other people who don't take care of themselves because they've never seen it, right? Because you tend to gravitate towards people who do similar things as you. And so if you're constantly in that energy, you just may not know how to take care of yourself. So really taking the time, and you can even pause the podcast or think about it over this week or this weekend. How can you redefine self-care for yourself? How are you taking care of yourself in a way that aligns with who you are and what you need, not what is reflected in social media, right? And I also want to talk about the urgency behind taking care of yourself and behind resting, because we talk about, again, self-care as like this thing that we can do so that way we can feel happy, we can do all these things. But what we also don't look at is the ugly truth of what happens when we don't take care of ourselves, right? When we aren't sleeping, when we have insomnia, when we can't stop crying, why we're stuck in an abusive relationship, or why you ended up in the hospital because you drove yourself into the ground. And even some people, and just trigger warning, people even taking their life because there's too much pressure upon them because they don't know how to rest. No one has ever shown them how to rest. So I want people to really understand that resting is way more important than we actually value it for today, society. Resting will literally save someone's life.
And I want to say this as an example because my client was really vulnerable the other week. I'm not going to say who they are, but they shared a story about how they were able to show up for someone who was clearly going to a very dark place. And, they were trying to find their balance with rest and doing what they wanted to do, but the pressure of generational trauma and family dynamics of not resting and you need to show up and you need to do all this stuff was literally taking their life away slowly. And they shared this really beautiful story about how them being, in my program, more than worthy, and them making a conscious decision to improve their own self-care, the care for themselves, and learn something new. They were then able to, in a very crucial moment where this person needed help, they were able to create space and show them and articulate to them how important it was that they love themselves and that they know that they deserve rest. Like, they deserve rest. That is the biggest sign of love that you can give yourself, is rest. And, they said this person got really emotional and broke down. And, it just goes to show that you can literally go day to day forcing yourself to live a certain way, and it'll do so much damage on you. It'll reinforce a lot of the trauma you have. It'll hurt you. It'll break you down. It'll take your money, right? Because you think that you're creating more money by doing all these things, but you're taking more money. Because money is a higher frequency thing. Like, love is a higher frequency thing. So you then become focused on the lower vibrations of, I just have to do this and push through and push your happiness to the side, instead of doing something that's actually going to help you, like rest and be happy, right? So I want everyone to really realize that for me, when I think of rest as, I do this not just for me, because yes, I do deserve it, but I also do this so that I can show up for other people as well, so that I can help them acknowledge that they deserve love and happiness and rest, so that they don't drive themselves into the ground like their grandparents, right? Like, you see a lot of people, especially in, cultures who are of color, you've seen your parents or their parents work themselves almost to death, right? Like, that's where that phrase is coming from. And so now some of us have the luxury to do the opposite. So we can really honor our family, honor ourselves, and also do healing work by resting, and then becoming the example for other people to be able to feel safe to rest as well. So they feel like they know how to do it. Because what happens is, when you're not resting, right, you end up like that person who was lost, who was driving themselves into the ground, who was only listening to their family because their family was projecting all of this, you have to do this, because they never learned to rest. But then my client came along who had been taking the conscious effort to rest and to take care of themselves, and was like, it's okay, like, you can rest, And so we have to understand that everything we do, even how we rest or how we view self-care, affects everybody around us. Every single person. So if you are not resting, it's going to show. And it's probably causing you trauma. And it's going to cause others trauma as well. And I also just want to say, for all those who feel like they can't rest, just take it one day at a time. If it means, instead of working 3 hours overtime, maybe work 2 hours. And then work 1 hour. And then see if you can just work during your work hours, right? Like slowly build up to it so you get used to it. And then block out a day on your calendar to just do whatever you want. Literally whatever you want. Wake up. You can keep your phone off or keep it on. If it's on your fun list, then leave it on, right? Get outside. Take a deep breath. Go get a coffee or a smoothie, whatever it is. Just invite that one thing for yourself every single day, no matter how small, even if it's just a breath. Like today I'm going to take care of myself and I'm just going to take one more breath. Because for me, even when I was in a very depressed state after I was married and got divorced, that was my self-care. It was just one more breath so I could find the energy to get out of bed. So be really gentle with yourself and know that it always gets better as long as you just take that one little step to take care of yourself. And then you'll completely do it with ease down the road, and you'll be surprised of how far you come. And for those who are good at taking care of themselves, let's help out the other folks, right? Help out a parent, help out a family member, help out a neighbor, because every little sign of love goes such a long way. So that is it for me. This was a short episode. I just wanted to share that thought with everybody. If you have questions, find me on Instagram. I've got spots open for More Than Worthy if you want to rediscover self-love and learn how to truly take care of yourself. I've got some spots open. You can actually apply for it on my Instagram page. So on that note, thank you all for showing up for me and showing up for yourself, and I will talk to you later.
Hey, if you're ready to ascend to happiness and live the life you've always wanted, join me in my Empowered Living Facebook group for socially conscious healers, witches, and spirituals, and sign up to get my free Empowered 5 Practices to Ascended Happiness guide. It's helped others expand their consciousness and soar beyond sight, sound, and imagination in just one day. It's the catalyst you need to embrace your magic and change the world. Just click the link in the show notes, and I'll see you in the group next time.